And so many times, a lot of things will look and kind of twist into the negative and show what you need to work on. And human design, really, at the truth of it, is about accessing your design so that you're in alignment with who you be, so that life is actually easier for you. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Akeisha. You're listening to the Let Go Movement podcast. Today, I have my friend Jess Garay on the episode. We're going to talk human design and business and her work with working with women in business, letting human design change, influence, impact your life and your business. I've done an audit with her. I've talked to her numerous times. I have so many people that I listen to and receive information from when it comes to human design. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite tools to access more of me. It's one of my favorite things to refer to when it comes to understanding who I am and how I am best to operate in this world, because we're all designed differently. We are all different. And so many times, a lot of things will look and kind of twist into the negative and show what you need to work on. And human design, really, at the truth of it, is about accessing your design so that you're in alignment with who you be, so that life is actually easier for you and that you are always following your joy. And it gives you tools to do that. It amalgamates a few things. And Jess has this beautiful way of talking about it, deciphering the information, connecting with you as a human, really speaking to the gifts of everything. And so from the very first time I talked to her, I was like, we're going to have a conversation. So I'm very excited to bring her onto the episode today. I hope you learn a little bit more about human design through her work. And I hope you feel inspired to go search out her resources or work with her if you are looking, understanding your design and how to integrate it not only into your life, but in your business. So definitely excited for this episode. Jess Garay is a human design strategist for women in business who are ready to lead with truth, power, purpose without burning out. Through her integrative approach, Jess helps clients move beyond just knowing their human design to actually living it. Unlocking clarity, courage, and sustainable impact, Jess brings grounded, empowering presence to every conversation and is passionate about helping women come home to themselves. Hello, Jess. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming on the Let Go Movement podcast and sharing your love affair and your experience of human design with my audience. This is something that I've been so intrigued by for years. And I know we had a session together, which brought me that next level into the work. And I just want to say thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for asking. I'm so honored to be here.
Great. My first question is obviously the typical, who are you? What do you do? But first, I want to know, like, what's one, give me one thing. I know there's a lot. One thing that you like love, like keel over in just absolute passion and joy for with human design.
Oh gosh, you're right. That is a hard question. There's so many things. And I think for me, the biggest thing when I discovered my design was it was this massive permission slip that I didn't know I needed. And I find that it's so often that's exactly the terminology that people use is like, it just feels like me. It's permission. And so I would say that that's the number one thing that I hear most often and is most impactful is like, when you're sitting with someone and you see their like light bulb turn on and their eyes get big, like that is the moment for me when people just feel understood. That is so impactful.
That is impactful. Okay, now get to like, who's Jess? Where are you from? Where are you residing now?
I'm Jess. I'm a human design strategist. I live in Ontario, Canada, with my two boys that are my youngest is almost a teenager. And so I had a little moment this morning of having two teenagers. And my husband, we live on a hobby farm in the middle of nowhere outside of the big city. And we just have a lot of fun. We're all Manny Gens, all four of us. I'm a 3-6. And your face. And so, yeah, we just have a lot of fun. We're all sacral authorities as well. So that's been really interesting too. I was actually having a conversation with someone this morning about, when you know your kids' designs or when you know the designs of the people you're interacting with, the way you ask questions is different. And so it creates like a whole different dynamic in your relationship. So that's been something that's like personally been really beneficial through human design. But yeah.
That's amazing. When did you, sorry, first question, do your kids know their design?
No. So
Okay.
we haven't gone into the specifics of their design, but they just know that they feel good.
So
So
you're like,
I'm just
behind
wondering,
the scenes.
right? Although I did have a conversation with someone, this is fascinating. I haven't looked at the research yet, but apparently there's some sort of research that if you even have just like the picture of their design on their wall, that they embody it even without knowing what any of it means,
Well, the frequency still travels.
right?
hmm
So that was fascinating to me as well. It's like, even if they don't know what it all means.
That's okay. Side note, pause. Have you ever heard of the telepathy tapes?
Tapes. Yes, I
Okay.
have.
There's an episode where they talk about how some of the people change out certain images on their
Mm,
wall and certain images they can't have on their wall because it's giving them too much information, like it's too noisy for them. And then they'll put, if they're learning something, they'll put an image of something up and they like download all the information that they need to know about it.
wow.
And they'll just like spew the facts to you. You can like Google everything they're saying, but they'll like learn, if they want to learn about stars or something, they'll like put up a Stargate or whatever and they'll download all the information they need from it. And then they
That's
have that.
wild.
I thought that was wild to have like certain images give them certain information and certain images they can't have because it's just it's literally just noise. And they'll take off certain things off the wall based on what they're perceiving from it. I was like, that is a brilliant capacity. So that reminded me of that. So for listeners who don't know what the telepathy tapes are, go search them. It'll kind of blow your mind to know what's possible for the human race.
And I'm going to go look at that particular episode. I have to be honest, I listened to it, or I started listening to it, and then I got a little freaked out because I was like, can people, like, what if I don't know if I want to know what people can do with their brains to that
It's
level?
amazing. They actually, some of the people from the telepathy tapes have been helping this lady who photographs water because she was
Mm,
noting there's like hieroglyphs in water showing up like consistently over a course of a few years. So she reached out to some of the people on the telepathy tapes and they've been giving her information based on questions she's asking about water. And she actually, Pam Gregory is an astrologer in the UK, interviewed this woman and she shares some of her recordings. That might be a great place to start.
okay.
It's so great. Okay, side note done. What brought
I
you
love it.
into human design? When did you actually sink into this as the work that you do today?
Yeah. So I found human design, or human design found me about 5 years ago. I was doing some behind the scenes work for another coach in the space, and she was teaching human design. And so, because of the work that I was doing, I was learning about the system, I was learning about myself, and I went like full deep nosedive into human design, especially once I got that first piece, like the big permission slip. I was like, okay, this is freedom to do things my way. And throughout that time, so that was about 5 years ago, throughout that time, I've been incorporating it mostly behind the scenes with my one to one clients. And in the past year or so, I would say it's more of something I'm leading with from a human design plus business strategy standpoint of, what is the impact that you want to make in the world? Why is it important? And how can we use your human design to put those two things together to give you the biggest impact possibility that you can possibly have?
Mm-hmm. So, how does it differ from your awareness, from your perspective, other systems out there that do the same thing? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So human design, there is a lot of times people say, oh, it's just another personality test, or it's just another thing that can give you clues. And I think that for me, the way I see human design is it's a custom blueprint for how you're meant to lead and to create and to make decisions. And so when you can unlock those couple of things of how you best use your energy, how you best create aligned opportunities, and how you best make decisions, everything in your life becomes easier. And so I don't know that any system is better than another system necessarily. It's human design is the one that I came into and the one that I use with my clients, but I think that it's all energy. It's
Mm-hmm.
whatever energy you put behind something, your belief, the way you use it. And I don't believe in learning knowledge without the application of it. And that's why I use human design in the way that I do, is because I want people to take their human design and actually do something with it. So using it more as the integration piece to create that transformation and to realize some of the areas where you might be stuck, that it's just operating out of a different alignment than your body is designed to do.
Mm. What have you noticed has been, other than the permission slip being a really big common thread that your clients have gone through, because you work specifically or more or less with women who have business, because it is like you want to make an impact, and there's that human design application, do something with it, right? Business is like immediate, do something with it. There's immediate, what's the word? Response to what you're doing. Where was my question in here? Oh, okay. So with women who are working with business, other than a permission slip, is there another thing that you've found consistently in your clients that has been like the key with when they align their design with what they're doing in business, be it a key that actually takes something out of their world or a key that puts something into their world?
The biggest impact for me is always when they start trusting their authority, when they trust the way that they make decisions as opposed to outsourcing the ideas and inspiration to people outside of them. When they are able to trust that internal compass, everything in their business becomes easier because they're making decisions from a place of, this feels like a heck yes in my body, as opposed to, this feels like something I should do or I have to do because someone else told me.
Mm,
Because my belief is always that every strategy works as long as it feels good to you and you do it for long enough. And
that's
so
true.
if they are following a strategy that doesn't feel good to them, even if you follow it like 1 through 10 perfect, it's never going to land with the right people because it doesn't feel good to you. It's a
Yeah.
huge energetic thing.
While we're on this topic, and this isn't an episode of the basics of human design, I just want to let the listeners out there, we're going to go into some other ways human design shows up. But can you just quickly run through what authority you're talking about?
Yeah, of course. So there's different authorities in human design. So when you have your human design chart pulled, and there's a free resource on my website if people want to go and do that, but it will tell you what your authority is. And so the most common authorities are emotional authority and sacral authority for manifesting generators and generators. And again, those are types of human designs. There's 5 different types. And so with the authorities, those are the two most common. And you can have an emotional authority and not be a manifesting generator or generator as well, just for a little bit more clarity. But there's also a splenic authority, which you are. There's
Mm-hmm.
also an ego authority. And so there's different authorities depending on which centers are colored in, defined, or not colored in your chart. And so when you're making decisions, that is the center that you want to, and each one sounds and looks a little bit different. Those are the centers that you want to make decisions from. And so, for example, a sacral authority is like a gut response. It's a yes or no, a this or, like leaning forward, leaning back type energy. And the spleen is a little bit more of like a quieter knowing, like a tap on the shoulder or a nudge, but it comes quick and it goes quick. And so
Yes,
it's
it
really
does.
about, so it's really about taking advantage of that intuitive knowing as it comes and moving with it. So each design type has, or each human design has its own authority. And so that's why it's important for each person to know what their authority is, because that's how they best make decisions. And that's not only in their business, that's in their life, that's in
Mm,
relationships, it's in everything.
beautiful. Um, what it has there been a combination of type and authority that you find women specifically may have a harder time unconditioning themselves around?
I wouldn't say necessarily a type and authority. Having said that, though, society has taught us to follow a straight line, follow a linear path, do this, this, and this. And I know growing up, it was like, do this by this age, and this by this age, and this by this age. And if you didn't fall within that little box of, have a career, follow this linear path, there was something wrong with you, or there was something that wasn't quite, it wasn't societally appropriate. And so I wouldn't say it's specific to type or authority. I would say it's a societal conditioning overall. And even if you like did everything right according to society, there's always nuance. There's always things that people do differently, and there's no one right way to do everything. And so there's a lot of conditioning for most types, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Can we talk a little bit about so human design, from my awareness, blends a few things together. But it's not astrology. It's not the I Ching, but it blends and uses them all in. And it's what gives you that very complex graph that we see when you get your graph pulled or your design pulled. Can you talk about more of how there's so many voices in my head right now trying to get out a question. How the human design perspective really looks at your chart and those gates as gifts versus what so many people, I think, automatically assume are like negatives. Can you talk to the gift perspective of human design?
Yes. I have had so many people come to me thinking, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. I don't operate the way that everybody else operates. And what I have found is that when you look at people's human design charts, it's a lot of interpretation by the person who's sharing the information. And so I've had people come to me that have said, like, I don't actually know about this system. I've had people tell me things that make me feel worse than I felt before I was actually looking at my human design. And from my perspective, there's nothing that's good, bad, right, or wrong in a chart. It's just what is. And there's gifts in literally every single person's chart, in every single gate, in every single channel, in every single center, whether it's defined or undefined, their type. And I was talking to someone earlier today. She was a projector, and we were talking about how sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't want that design, or that's not really what I wanted. I thought I would be a manifesting generator, and that's what I wanted. And I said, wouldn't it be such a boring world if there was no projectors? Nobody who could see things the way that other people can't see things. No one who can offer that perspective and like the richness to life. Like if you didn't have that and everyone was just floating around like manifesting generators, the world would be A, chaotic, and B, it wouldn't offer that variety and depth. And so I think that there's so many pieces to a chart, and looking from that perspective of how can this best support me in achieving the best life that I have to live is what makes it so beautiful, is because there's so many gifts in it. And I don't ever want anyone to come into human design and think about it as another box that they have to fit into. It's like, oh, I'm this type, so I have to do this, this, and this. No. You're this type, so you may have these characteristics, or you may find that this happens for you. But there's so many, as you said, different pieces to a chart. And so sometimes it's in like the smallest little gate or channel where one of your gifts lives. And sometimes it's in just knowing that you're a manifester. So there's so many layers to it, and also so much beauty in it.
Mm-hmm. That prompts a question as you're speaking. Can you share each type and the gift that you see, generally speaking? Because there's no like, I mean, you can use me as an example for the manifestor part, but when it comes to seeing the gift of that type in business.
Ooh.
So like going
Okay.
through the types and what you see as the gift of how they can be in business, whether they're, okay, let's two-part this. Leading their business or being in like an employee role?
Okay. I need to make a note so I don't lose track of where I'm going. Okay, so we'll start with a manifestor. So basically, just to summarize, your question is manifestor's role or gift in business and also as an employee.
Yeah. Cause
Okay,
let's make it versatile for the two listeners that I know are probably listening right now.
perfect. So in business, manifestors, and I know this for you as well, I love manifestors. And I think that's why probably we had like this instant connection because they're visionaries. They're people who can see the bigger picture of things and have this passion and fire behind them. And they aren't necessarily the ones that bring the idea to fruition necessarily, but they're the idea starters. They have so much fire and passion from within them. And so in a business, they are a person who you want on your team because they have ideas, they have things that they can bring to your business and to the way that you see things. And so that's why I love the work that you do and the way that you support your clients because you can like hold them in a way that nobody else can. And so in business, it's such a strength to have a manifestor, a person who has ideas, who can start missions and visions and I'm trying to think of the word, like a movement, like to start a movement is such a strength of a manifestor.
Oh, nice. I think
And
you
then on the
nailed that both in the business owner and the business employee.
right, I was going to say, and actually it's kind of the same thing for the employee of like why you want somebody on your team is because they do have ideas and see things that other people can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your manifestor one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for a manifestor too, in a sense of if you're an employee, there are so many people out there that cannot create the idea. They can take the idea and they run with it, but you ask them like, well, what do you see here? Where do you see this going? What's new? What's next? And they're just like, I don't know. But you give it to them and they will like spew out the to-do list, the what's next, they'll carry it for you. And I think also speaking as a manifester, if you're a business owner, and please interject if you need to, as a business owner, finding that generator to work with actually helps. And this is what I'm trying to work towards, or I'm working towards, is finding that generator that can be my team member, that my very close kind of like person that can take my ideas and run with them so I can actually stay in my energy of bringing the next thing, but I don't get bogged down and kind of teeter out in that the generator role or the many generator. Because I'm like, yeah, and then it's so interesting how like we're kind of that leader top down energy more or less. So yeah, balancing the two or just understanding that we're not actually meant to do all the things can be so liberating and a little like, okay, well then what? Well, then what? Find a generator to work with. Who's
Yes.
going to love you for your ideas because it gives them something to do.
Yes. And that's the piece, right? When you can blend the strengths together of different design types. I actually recently did a business intensive with two business owners. So we had one business owner's chart and the other business owner's chart. And so I did in front of each other, like what each type showed, and then also how they could work together collaboratively to divide roles and responsibilities, to look at what are their strengths, to look at the areas that they thrive because they were different types. And so they each have different strengths.
That's amazing. Oh my, that should just be standard if you're going to have a business partner.
I find it too in relationships and
Mm-hmm.
with people's kids, right? If you knew how to interact with your children in different ways because you knew what their design type was, what a different relationship that creates.
And not from a sense of, oh, you're the first child, I'm the second child, or like
Right.
so and so gets special treatment. When you can actually share like well, this is how you respond. So I actually tailor my questions to you so you're best in alignment and energy. And then this is how I do it for this person. It almost like takes away, or the goal is would be taking away that like I'm not that person. I'm like that subconscious what's wrong with me programming that just kind of imbues themselves in there. But if you had the knowing of like, no, I'm actually choosing very specifically and honorably how to approach you as a being.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Okay, let's
Keeping
move on
all
to
those pieces
projector.
in consideration.
Yeah.
Yes. Projectors. So, projectors, we talked a little bit about projectors already, but they're just such beautiful beings and they can see things that other people can't see. They can often see like a more upgraded, faster route to something, and they're here to share that with others. And so, in business, when they can see like a shortcut that someone can take, what a huge gift that is to share with that person of how they can get there most efficiently and effectively by doing things a little bit differently. And so they work really well too in collaboration with different design types and seeing how, generator, for example, could work more efficiently and more effectively. So they're not trying to spin all their wheels and getting everything done so fast, but like what are the pieces that they could maybe shortcut or eliminate in order to get that result faster that they desire?
Amazing. I can see that in my husband and things that he absolutely loves. He's a projector.
Yeah. And so similarly in business, right? Looking for the shortcuts to things, looking for the most efficient route, looking for the most supportive route. It's almost like I see projectors as like they have this bird's eye view of things and they can just like almost like mold things into being the most effective and impactful, I would say is the word that comes to mind.
Very cool. Okay, generators.
Generators. So we talked also a little bit about generators. So for me, generators are the people who are the doers. But I think oftentimes people fall into this cycle of like doing, doing, doing. And the caveat that I love to share with generators is it still needs to come from that sacral yes in your body. It needs to feel like a hell yes, because if you're just producing and producing and producing, but it doesn't feel good, you will burn out, even though you have a defined sacral center. And so in business, they often can partner really well with people who have big visions. Generators are designed to master one thing and then move on to the next thing. And so when they are fully in their element and they're diving in, and I will say in all charts, there's so many different nuances. This is just the basics of the type. Depends on their profile, depends on their centers, defined or undefined, etc. But they are the ones that can really help bring those visions to life for other people who are the fire starters or are the seers of things. Generators are the one that can help bring the vision to life, and they love it as long as it's something they love, right? And so again, in business, they're the people employees, they're the people who are the ones that show up to work every day and get things done and are reliable and resourceful and able to, oftentimes, if they don't know the answer to something, they're resourceful and they'll figure it out. And I would say similar actually for manifesting generators, except manifesting generators are designed to like dabble in a bunch of different things. And so they're designed to follow like that spark within them of what do I want to do today? It's like a little buffet, right? What do I want to do today? What do I want to tap into? And I'm a manifesting generator. And so for me, how that looks in life and business is that I tend to dabble in quite a few things, but they all light me up. So my background is in nursing. I've been a registered nurse for 18 years. I've been incorporating human design for the last 5, but in online business for over 10 years. I have 2 kids. We homeschool. We live in a hobby farm. We raise monarch butterflies. I currently have 7 in chrysalis 6 in chrysalis and 2 more caterpillars, and we've already released 5. So that's just like a little look into manifesting generators. Like it doesn't have to be that linear path. And I think that so often that's what we're conditioned to, of like, if you don't follow one thing, you're flaky or you're in some way doing something wrong. And as an employee, it's really nice to have a manifesting generator because they are willing oftentimes to take those little odd jobs because they like to keep variety in their work and to not feel like they're doing the same thing every single day. And that's, I think, why I love nursing so much, is because it's always something new. It's always different.
Mm, that's cool. Okay, one that I don't get to hear a lot about, reflectors.
Yes. So reflectors are, for those who don't know, the rarest of types. And they are only 1% of the population. And so I think oftentimes reflectors feel like they are in their own little island because there's not that many of them. And the information that's out there about reflectors is that they need to wait a lunar cycle. So they need to wait like a month before making decisions. And what I know to be true is that that's not for all decisions. You're not going to wait a month to decide what pair of shoes you're going to buy, or even necessarily where you're going to go on vacation. But for reflectors, it's really about their environment. And so in entrepreneurship, and actually as an employee, it's really important to make sure that they're in environments that allow them to thrive, that inspire them, that have people that they're connected to, that see them and feel them and hear them and value their opinion and insight when they feel safe to share. Because it's really about allowing themselves to show who they truly are. And so often in my conversations with reflectors, oftentimes they feel like they don't belong anywhere. So when they find that environment where they thrive and where people see them, they just thrive and they flourish and they are able to be the fullest expression of them and to show up in ways that feel good to them, but also to the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And allow themselves to just let the world reveal the answers to them.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you don't really hear too much out there on the online space for the reflectors. This talked so openly, so I have a couple, I think two reflectors in my life, which I find I'm like, oh, they are gems.
Right?
And they really are like gems of humans.
Right? I
And
know.
when the two reflectors that I know that are reflectors, and they've told me, I'm like, I've always considered you when someone's like, oh, how's this person? I'm like, she is a gem.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first words that I use to describe them because it's like the energy of them. And they
Yeah.
are that the reflect back to how are we doing? How is this environment? Because if they're uncomfortable, then something's uncomfortable within the environment for them or the collective as a whole. I think also seeing them not from a using point, but you can just tap into them and be like, hey, what do you get from this? Like, I feel like they're great consultants could be a
Yeah.
way they show up in the world as someone who's like, give me your thoughts on this. Same as projectors, give me your thoughts on this, because like show me what the pulse is on this whole situation. um I feel like they would pop up in those roles quite a bit. Okay, thank you so much for like diving into all those different
Yeah.
types and kind of breaking it up. um I have a question here. I'd love to know, when you work with someone specifically in business, I know you said there's this like permission slip, or like the way they work designs like actually shows up in their business. Can you extrapolate a little bit more of how, when you're working with someone outside of just an initial consultation, how they would see the work actually progressing into integration, not in just their life but in their business? Can you kind of walk us through what that process, if someone is like listening to this and be like, I wonder what it would be like to work with Jess for my business? Can you give us a little insight, a little peek into that process?
Yeah, for sure. So much like anything in the kind of coaching, consulting, strategy space, everyone's challenges or things that they desire support around are different. And so I focus on business because for me, impact is my number one value. If I can work with someone who's then spreading that goodness and knowledge and information and sharing their work in the world and creating a bigger impact, like, my life is fulfilled. And so when someone comes, oftentimes they are a leader who has led businesses, run teams, created impact in the world, but they desire now to do it in a way that feels really good to them, that doesn't feel like hustle or force or like they're pulling their teeth or dragging anybody along with them. And so it's really about taking all of those pieces that they've gained so far, taking the pieces that are strengths of theirs and leaning into the strengths while releasing the pieces that feel heavy for them. And so oftentimes it looks like looking at their business strategy overall and saying, okay, what are the pieces that are working? What are the pieces that challenge you? And then how can we make it so you can still get the results you want in a more easeful way without taking all the things that are challenges for you with you? So it's really like looking at their business from a bird's eye view. And we can look at, just a component of their business. So recently I had someone who was really struggling with their content generation and strategy. And so we just focused only on content and how she wanted to be in two different places. She wanted to be on Facebook and she wanted to be on Instagram. She didn't want to do any of the other ones. And so looking at, what are the pieces that you can share in each spot? What are the pieces that you can outsource in your content creation? What are the pieces that you need to do in order to make it sound like your voice? And what are the pieces that just don't matter at all? And so it comes in various parts of people's business, but what I love is that we're just removing the things that they don't, and the things that just don't work for them anymore, that may have worked previously, or that they might have enjoyed in a season, that they keep doing because they think they should do, but they don't necessarily feel that love and fire. So it's really about just releasing the things that are holding them back from becoming that fullest expression of them.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if someone's, listening to this and thinking, oh, okay, human design and business, how does that work? We are so bombarded with, especially as business owners, like we are networking all the time. We are hearing people's pitches. We are pitching ourselves. We're on Instagram and there's all these business ads because all Instagram hears us talk about is business. And when you start to let everyone's thoughts come into you, if you don't know your design, well, not if you don't know, knowing your human design, knowing what's an alignment with you is actually going to help filter through all those voices and actually have you say, thank you, no thank you, to way more without feeling like you're putting that person down, but you're actually really empowered by like, I hear what you're saying. Thank you. I do know what works best for me, and really having that standing trust in that maybe before having your knowing your design, knowing your gifts, knowing how things are like all playing together for you, maybe have made you go into something and try it, which I think if you're not a 3, sometimes really is something we do that we don't actually need to do. Like if you don't have a 3 in your profile, you don't really need to taste everything. Like you really don't. But we're conditioned to be like, give it a try, give it a try, give it a try. Never say never. Well, maybe we can actually just say no.
Yeah.
But if we're constantly bombarded with like, this is the answer, this is the answer, this is the answer, you'd be like, that is a answer. I don't need to choose that. And that's going to look so different for each design.
Yeah. And that's why I love, one of the biggest magics for me is in the defined and undefined centers, because when you can look at each of those, what they look like on a chart, for anyone who doesn't know, is just like the shapes and whether they're colored in or not colored in. So starting at the top, it's a triangle facing up, and then it's a triangle facing down, and then it goes down from there. But when you look at each of the centers, like the head is all about inspiration and clarity. So where your ideas truly come from and how to release the pressure to solve everything at once lives within that center. So whether it's defined or undefined, changes how you can use it strategically in your business and in your life in order to create that clarity and inspiration that you're looking for. So oftentimes if someone's undefined, I call it mental badminton. People have these ideas that come in, and I actually recently talked to someone who's like, mine's more like ping pong. It's a little bit faster speed than badminton, but bouncing ideas back and forth of like, should I do this or should I do this or should I do this or should I do this? And it plays up there really, really loud. And so it's about getting out of your head and getting into those authorities that we talked about. If you look at the Ajna Center, it talks about ideas and certainty and how you process ideas and how you hold ideas and why clinging to that certainty can keep you stuck. So each center gives you different clues as to how you can create the best life and business that you desire to. And I could go through them all, but
that's like one episode of just those.
Right.
Which, if you're interested, please reach out to Jess because she's got so many resources for you. Here's one that I would love to like just extrapolate a little bit. Talk about the ego, because the ego gets such a bad rap, but in human design, it's looked at from a completely different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. So ego / heart in human design, which I love just all by itself, is that it's ego / heart, because I think ego people think of as, yes, this negative thing, something that you don't want, something that you, it has this negative connotation to it. But in human design, it's really about willpower and worth. And so it's where proving yourself sneaks in and how to lead from power, not pressure. And so when we're looking at the ego center, and for people who have an ego center defined or even as their authority, it's really about, what do you love? What do you really desire to do? And not so much coming, from that egotistical place. It's coming from that heart-led place of what feels good in your body, what feels good in your heart, and leaning into that path and that course of travel.
I just realized like words are spells, right? And you can change and manipulate and twist a word so it works. It puts you in controlling you. And it's so interesting how we've attached the ego in this negative connotation and then looked at what we actually truly want as something we can't have. Because why would we want to make a positive to what we want? And it's so interesting because like the heart is the biggest electromagnetic outputter of all of our organs, of our entire body. It's like, what do you want? Not from a thing of what do you lack, but like, what do you desire? What's going to light you up the most? That is such a huge energy beam broadcast. And actually, they've proven it time and time again, but the heart communicates with the brain more than the brain communicates with the heart. So if you're not letting the heart speak, especially if you're ego defined or heart defined, if you're not letting that travel up, then your brain is just turning that off and twisting it. And then we get into like the mental state. Can you speak to who has, if you're, everyone should be heart-centered, right? Also, I love human design. It's like we're not just one. We've got elements of all of it together. But speaking from a defined ego, that's your authority, is it just if you have the heart defined, or is there a particular type that shows up more often in?
Yeah, so I just want to touch on first, before we jump into that, when someone's undefined in a center, it doesn't mean that they don't have that. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, I'm empty there. I don't have that. It just means it's not consistent for you. Yeah. So it just means that it comes and goes, it ebbs and flows, and it depends. So in our human design, where we're undefined, we become sponges for people in our environment. So if there's somebody around us that has an ego defined, in their presence, our ego becomes defined, which I find is so fascinating about human design, is how it changes and molds depending on the people you're around and the circumstances. But when you have an ego defined, you have this reliable access to willpower and drive, and that's only, again, when the desire is true and you're built for bold moves and big declarations and potency, and it needs to still be rooted in alignment. It needs to come from that desire within you. And oftentimes when people don't have this defined, that's where like the worth or the proving comes from, is from that undefined ego center. And because it's not consistent within you, it feels like a flaw, but it's actually a strength, and it's actually where you can allow yourself to dream and to be in the energy of what do I love and what do I desire, because you again are able to shape it depending on how loudly you want to declare it and embody it from within you.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful. I love human design. I love that you work with women in their business because it's a different energy when women work in their business, and it's a different energy when they're, some would say, in their feminine energy, and some would say when they're in their design. And I love both because we bring a different toolbox to business, and we have a different toolbox of desires and whys and whatnot. I do have a question that I haven't really heard a lot of people speak about, and I would love to hear your perspective on it. I've heard that the majority of the population doesn't have a defined will center, but we are taught, especially as entrepreneurs, to have that willpower.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't have that willpower, which often gets linked to consistency, you're doing it wrong. And so I would so appreciate if you could just speak to the business owners about
sure.
this, because I'm like sitting here being like, I don't have a defined will center. I'm not consistent. Yeah. And I'm like, but my manifestor, I'm like, just a fairy bouncing everywhere.
So the people, and I guess this is part of the previous question you asked. So the people who would have an ego center or heart center as their authority would be projectors or manifestors. So people who are manifesting generators or generators are going to either have emotional authority or sacral authority. It doesn't mean that they can't have their heart center defined, but there's like a hierarchy of authority. So emotional is first. If your emotional is defined, you're automatically an emotional authority. If that's undefined, but your sacral is defined, you're a sacral authority, and it kind of goes through. So the only people that can have their ego or their heart as their authority, their decision-making power, is projectors and manifestors. And reflectors have all centers undefined, so they don't have any definition in their chart. Mm-hmm. So the greatest portion of the population is, and I don't remember exact percentages, but the greatest portion of the population, like 70+%, is generator, manifesting generator. Manifestors and projectors are way less percentage of people. And so the majority of people do have an undefined heart ego center.
The willpower.
Yes.
So if you are...
But it doesn't mean...
Yeah, no, continue.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you don't have willpower, that you don't have that desire. But I think so often people do have that conditioning around something's broken because I can't stick to things. I can't... And, you know, we look at all pieces of the design. You know, if you're a manifesting generator, you're meant to move between a bunch of things. If you have a 3-line, which most of the people that I talk to have a 3-line for some reason. I tend to attract a lot of 3 lines into my world because I think, again, there's this conditioning around switching things and trying things on and failing and doing things that aren't the status quo or aren't the norm. And so, yes, most of us have an undefined ego or heart center, but it doesn't mean that there's anything good, bad, right, or wrong with you.
Okay, great.
You might notice that you say no that you say yes when you really mean no or maybe. That happens a lot for people who have undefined emotional centers. Or you, in business, try to earn your way into being visible, finding love, finding success, you know, trying to like prove it. It's this prove it energy. Mm-hmm. And or when it comes to sales, a lot of people who have an undefined ego center find that sales feels like asking for too much.
So really working with the understanding of what that is how that's showing up in your chart to really shift whatever beliefs that have been conditioned into you up until this moment to then start seeing a different result.
Yeah. So looking at, you know, why do I feel like I need to prove to deserve what I desire?
Ooh, that alone could be like just a conversational thread in the show notes. Just let it all out. Okay. Thank you for just extrapolating on all these different perspectives and bringing um, a different conversation to the introduction of human design for people. Where can we find you, work with you? What are you offering currently at the time of this podcast? I know you just dropped something recently. Can you share more about all of those things?
Yes, I did. I dropped two things recently. So one of them is, and I'll tell a little backstory that goes with it. So with human design charts, there's a few websites on the internet, but I wanted it to be something that was deeply personal for me. And so I've been doing these human design insights. And so people give me their information or drop their chart, and I give them just a little snippet based on that. And so what I realized is I created a form to make things easier, and I got 13 requests in one day for these human design charts. And so I spent hours and hours just like pulling charts and getting these insights, and I was like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way that more people can get information faster, because there was a delay for people, and I wanted it to be this more instantaneous response. But I tend to struggle a little bit with automation because I want it still to feel deeply personal to them. And so what I did is I found this website where I can input all the information about each of the types, the strategy, the authority, the defined centers, the undefined centers, and I put all my information into this platform. And so people can go to, and I think you said you'll put the link in the show notes, where they can get their own human design chart, but it has all the write-ups and information is information that I put in. So they can get that deeply personal me, but not me, and they can get it instantaneously, which is what I really wanted.
That's amazing. And before we talk about the other things that you just dropped, I will say when I did my audit with you, I asked like a specific question on gate 13, I think it is, or either my struggles or my gifts. Something about not going so deep into any particular thing. And Jess was like, "Give me a second." She came back like 2 days later and she delivered me this like beautiful way of talking about it. And I've read a few books about this particular gate. I've like chatted the gate, I've googled the gate, and the way you interpret the information completely resonated with me, and like pulled out all the gifts about that gift, about that gate. And I think the more people that focus on their gifts, their positives, their everything. I love the quote from Access, like, what if your wrongness was your strongness? Like, what if people that have pinned something as wrong was actually such a strength of yours, and if you just flipped it, would unlock so much for you. So just as a personal testimonial to your notes that you drop in there, they are so worth it, because it will just resonate with you on such a body energy level that I haven't read anywhere else. So thank you for doing that
Thank you.
and gifting that to the world. I will put the show notes. So what is that other thing that you dropped?
Yes. So the other thing, I also saw a need in my business for people who didn't necessarily want one-to-one work, which is the majority of what I do, is diving deep into those sessions, looking at people's charts, looking at how they can weave it into their business. But people who wanted something, but they didn't necessarily either weren't ready for that step, or it just wasn't the right timing for them. And so I went down the rabbit hole and created a 45, I think up to 47 page guide now, where they can learn about every single center in their chart and whether it's defined or undefined and what that means. And so it's applicable to everyone in their business, because everyone in their life and their business, because everyone has all the 9 centers, whether they're defined or the undefined. And so it speaks to both of those things. So it talks a little bit about, an example is what we just shared about the heart and the ego center. It talks about what does it mean if you're defined? What does it mean if you're undefined? And it gives you recalibration prompts for both of those options, and then how you can weave it into your business.
Oh, I love that.
I'm really focusing on my one-to-one work now, but also focusing on getting more information to more people. So I've been diving into I've been hanging out more on Facebook than Instagram. So revisiting my Instagram and creating a ton of content over there so people can get the information. And yeah, that feels fun.
Amazing. Well, if you want to work one-on-one with Jess, I highly encourage you to go book a call with her, check out her stuff. Maybe start with pulling your things so you have an understanding before you get on a conversation. Might be a great place to start. But you can just jump right on in and be ready to shift and change. Because with this work, you really have like the user manual now that is so unique and just like really supports you in using the user manual and like chucking out everything else that didn't work. Like, why would you, have a user manual for a Toyota when you have a Honda, like, or a Ferrari and you're using like a Ford? Like, not the same manual, not the same buttons, does not operate. And your, Mustang might be bright blue, while the Ford is green and chipping, like outdated. So definitely go check her out. All the links are below. And before we end off, or the last thing we'll end off is there anything else you want to share with the women that are watching this podcast, listening to this, that like message that you'd like to end off with?
I think this comes from my deepest passion for anything that I do in my life comes from working as a cancer care nurse for 13 years. And one thing I know to be true is that we only have one chance. We only have one opportunity to do this life. And when we are like crawling through life and like pulling through quicksand, that is definitely not the way to live. And so if you can allow yourself to follow the things that light you up, to say yes to more of the things that bring you joy, that say no to the things that don't. And I know, potentially this can sound easier said than done. Absolutely understand that. But when you follow those nudges and when you follow the fun, more unfolds for you. And so it's almost like this journey of just like constant evolution and growth. And that's what feels so exciting to me, is just being able to see yourself rise and go through life, the one life that we have, in such a beautiful way. Because we never know. We never know when our time is up. And leaving those footsteps behind us and the imprint behind us is the greatest gift that you can give to the world when you're the fullest expression of you.
Oh, I love that. Oh, yours and my passion so joyfully connect and mirror and contribute to each other. Thank you so much for taking your time to be on the Let Go Movement podcast. Speaking of movement, Let Go Movement. Let's create a movement here of letting go of things we do not need in our world and in our life and in our bodies. Please go give this episode a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with another business bestie, and of course, encouraging you all to go over to Jess's Facebook, Instagram, website, grab her free tools, grab her audits, grab her knowledge, her courses, her whatever she's got going on in the moment, and love up on her. And honestly, she's a gem. Even though she's not a reflector, she is a gem. So don't be shy in her corner. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for joining. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful I get to do life and conversation like this together. If today landed for you, I would love to hear what your takeaways were. Hop over to Instagram and hit me up in the DMs or leave a comment below. I love reading all of them. And if you haven't already done so, pay it forward by subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing this with someone that you love. These actions directly impact the show and they help us reach a new audience, so I am very grateful in advance. And if you want to explore working together or dive deeper into this work, you can check out in the show notes all my current offers and ways to connect. Until next time, everybody, have a magical and fantastic day.